In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? Highway 491 used to be Highway 666. They changed it BC. People kept stealing the signs. That's not really pertinent to my story, but when this happened it was still the 666. Highway 666 is in the middle of nowhere. It's the Four Corners area, which is a big desert that also gets freezing cold with horrible wind. Nobody wants to live there, so we gave it to the Indians. There are big Hopi and Navajo reservations out there, along with some smaller Ute and Apache reservations. I was driving along this road about 3 a.m. trying to get to Salt Lake City. I was a little ramped up on coffee and terrible road food. I'd probably had a pound of beef jerky and another pound of Sour Patch Kids by that point, and a couple gallons of coffee. I'd been on the road for about 16 hours by this point. I had probably also taken some ephedrine. It was sold as energy dabs at truck stops back then. I'm driving along listening to the Navajo radio station. I know the word DNA is in the name of the station, in this sugar/salt/caffeine/trucker pill state of consciousness. They were playing oldies music translated into Navajo, so you'd hear Donna by Richie Valens but with all Navajo words. It's kind of nice. I drive around a curve and my headlights catch, only for a moment. BC, I was going pretty fast, a man in a white robe and wearing a crown of thorns carrying a cross. Just alongside the highway in the middle of the night there may have been a dude playing at Jesus. Or I was hallucinating. I have no idea if I really saw it or just imagined it, but it woke me right the fuck up and I ended up getting a hotel in Moab instead of trying to make it all the way to Salt Lake. When I was a kid there was a high-speed chase through my neighborhood. It was very exciting because it was a small suburb not really close to main roads. My friend and I wanted to know where they were going, so we grabbed his dad's scanner and hopped into the back of his dad's truck that was parked on the street in front of his house. The chase went on for hours and hours, and through a couple of the surrounding towns. They finally caught him after a while, but we were hooked to that scanner. We got permission from our parents to stay out later in hopes of catching another chase on the scanner and to decipher all the police codes with the book that came with the scanner. As it got later, the activity on the scanner became more sparse and there was long periods of silence, so we decided to call it a night. It was around 11 p.m. by then. As we were about to get out of the truck, a car slowly pulled up alongside us with its headlights off. The dude pulls up to where my friend was sitting. He was towards the cab of the truck and I was near the tailgate, and exclaims, "Hey!" in an aggressive voice. Right at that moment our scanner went off and there was a long pause. Then he says, "Do you know what time it is?" My buddy's eyes get huge and he turns ghost white, points at the guy's car and says, "11:13, sir." The car speeds off and we just sit there trying to process what just happened. As this guy and my friend were talking, I was looking in his car. Since we were sitting high up in the back of the truck, I had a good angle, and I could see that the back of his car was piled to the roof with car seats for babies and a crowbar. I started to tell my friend this and he interrupted to tell me that the guy had a shotgun sitting next to him in his seat, and the reason he pointed at the car when he told him the time was because the radio in the car had a very large display with the time on it. We ran inside his house freaked out. To this day I think that scanners saved our butts somehow, and the dude maybe thought it was a walkie-talkie or something. The house I grew up in from 2000 to 2013 had all kinds of weird shit happen. The house was built on old farmland in the early 70s, and had an old dilapidated barn in the bush in the back. My dad's old 90s stereo would turn on full blast for no reason in the middle of the night, and doors would close by themselves. One time a 100-pound wooden wall attachment was leaning up against the wall upstairs and somehow moved 3 feet and was launched down the staircase. Another time my mom and dad were on the computer staring at that old picture where you concentrate on it and then see Jesus on the wall. All of a sudden the printer downstairs started printing, and when we went down it just kept printing picture of it. My mom screamed and my dad was creeped out. I could tell it was legit as I was the one running the computer. My friend Josh came upstairs in a hurry one time and wouldn't say, but then the next day said he was playing drums and saw something run across the storage room in the basement. The last thing that happened was a few years ago before everyone moved out. I was already gone and my mom went to open my room's door and it felt like someone was holding it from the other side. Thinking it was me, she was laughing but the door was resisting on the other side. Suddenly, it let go and the door flew open and nothing was in there. All of this, and in 2006 when my Uncle Phil came from England with his son, they slept in that same room. In the morning at breakfast he asked everyone who was the bearded man in the room with us last night. And everyone was so fucking freaked. This all happened over 13 to 14 years, so most of the time nothing would go on for long periods of time, but people still think it's freaky when I tell them all that. A guy I knew scaled my dorm, went into the building through the vents, and kicked a hole through the ceiling to knock on my door at 3 in the morning. I was 18, coming home way late and trying to be quiet to avoid waking my folks. We had a large golden lab that was happy to see me and I was petting him to keep him quiet. Suddenly he froze up and started growling at the back door I had just come in through. I looked up at the door and could see the silhouette of a person's head standing just outside. Now I've got a big dog next to me, a kitchen full of knives and the door's locked. To boot, the head barely came up to the window in the door. So I figured it's some neighborhood kid fucking with me. Still, any person's silhouette in a window at 1 a.m. is unsettling. Everything happened pretty quickly. The dog started barking. I shouted, "Who's there?" and flipped on the outdoor light. It's hard to even describe the face on the other side of the window. It was straight out of a nightmare. The furry head of Satan himself. As soon as the light hit it, it turned to face me, bared his pointy fangs and hissed. It took me a second to realize it was just a opossum curled up on top of the fence post outside the door, but not fast enough to prevent me screaming like a 4-year-old girl and waking the whole house up. Being like 9 or 10, I was in the living room watching TV late at night on the weekend and my dad was working in his office. The kitchen was connected to the living room by a wide hallway. I heard a bunch of commotion and I thought it was my dad making something. Turns out it was Robber Dude trying to steal shit. I turned around and he was making the shush motion with his finger and mouth as he was walking towards me with a cleaver. He got about 5 feet from me before my dad walked in from the adjacent room and pointed a revolver at Robber Dude. I'll never forget those words my dad said. "Make another move towards my son, and he'll fucking redecorate this room with your goddamn head." My dad held him at gunpoint while I called the police. Maybe this was a doppelganger or a glitch in the Matrix, but this really spooked my spaghetti. So I was 9 years old, playing video games in the living room while my mom was taking a nap upstairs, early home from work. Suddenly I heard my mom calling me. I thought she needed help, so I made my way upstairs, but then I heard her voice downstairs. I went back to the living room and looked around, thinking she was playing a joke on me, when I saw the basement door ajar and her head poking out of the open door. "What do you want, Mom?" "Just come down here." "Yeah, but what do you need?" "Just come down here, I need to show you something." When I was 9, I was a bit of a wuss and wouldn't watch horror movies. If I did, I would have known this was instant death. I walked towards the basement and saw her head move behind the door and move back into the basement. I opened the door more and stood at the top of the stairs. The light switch was at the bottom of the stairs, so I was fucked 6 ways till Sunday. I saw a figure in the darkness moving away from me and something just hit me that something wasn't right. Then I heard what sounded like a growling bear getting his balls caught in a vice and knew that it was my mom snoring. Then I heard a high-pitched voice from in the dark saying, "Come on down. Look." And it sounded nothing like my mom, so I freaked out and bolted upstairs, slammed the basement door and raced up to my mom's room where she was asleep. I told her about it and she sounded freaked out too. TLDR, heard mom calling me from basement, made my way downstairs when I heard a weird high-pitched voice in the basement and my real mom snoring upstairs. Aliens always freaked me out, no matter what. I can tough out the movies now, but they are still unsettling. When I was young, E.T. was a reoccurring nightmare. Fast forward 20 years. I'm working at a fishing lodge in the middle of nowhere. You can see the stars at night and you can feel the wind change direction. We have a rare night with very few guests, so the staff, 5, decides we should have a movie night. Sure. What are we watching? Fourth Kind. Fuck. Okay, whatever, it's been a while since even thought about aliens, maybe I'm over it. Nope. The movie got me going pretty good. It ends, we all say goodnight and I head to my little cabin on the edge of the woods, plug my phone, set my alarm, put it on the windowsill under the white curtain and try and go to bed. It wasn't easy to fall asleep. I was in and out of uneasy sleep throughout the night, being paranoid, hearing nature, duh. The instance I'll never forget is when I woke up in a cold sweat, absolutely paralyzed due to fear, when suddenly a bright white light illuminates the entire window. I'm fairly sure I screamed. Turns out my phone hit 100% charge, bringing up the lock screen at maximum brightness to boot. The rush dissipated once I realized what was happening, called myself an idiot and went back to bed.